So picture this. Your business is finally hitting its stride, it's a huge success, and suddenly this golden opportunity to expand lands right in your lap. I mean, this is the dream, right? But with that dream comes one massive, unavoidable question that could change everything. Oh, there are so many yummy vegetarian options out there. You could try like lentil soup, veggie burgers, tofu stir fry. The possibilities are endless. And there it is, the big one. You've built something great, you can see the path to making it even bigger, but scaling costs money, a lot of money, usually more than you've got just sitting in the bank. You're at a fork in the road, and the choice you make right here, right now, will define the future of your company. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start at that big decision point, the expansion crossroads. Then we'll dig into what happens when you decide to bring in partners. We'll look at the different ways you can structure the deal. And then we're going to get super practical with a real-world case study about a company called Roller Limited. And that's all going to lead us to the big payoff, the truly surprising math behind getting up equity. So you're standing at that crossroads. Opportunity is calling your name, but your resources are stretched thin. And this forces you to make a really fundamental choice. Do you play it safe, grow slow and steady, or do you go for it? Seize the moment and expand like crazy. Let's just break down the trade-offs here, because they're huge. On one side, you can go for limited expansion. You use the money you already have, which means slower growth. But, and this is a big but, you keep 100% control. It's all yours. The other path? Rapid expansion. You jump on that opportunity, but it means you've got to raise capital. And that means new partners and sharing ownership. Look, neither way is wrong, but that second path, well, that's where things get really interesting and complex. All right, so let's say you've decided to go for it. You're going to pull the trigger, raise the money, and bring on some new partners to fuel that incredible growth. Awesome. But hold on. Before you even think about talking to a lawyer, you have got to answer some really foundational questions about your strategy. And you really need to sweat the details on these. First up, are these new folks investing in your entire company, the whole shebang, or just this new expansion project? That's a massive difference. Second, are they going to be in the trenches with you, managing day to day, or are they just silent partners writing a check? That defines your whole relationship. Then you got to think bigger picture. Are you after a few big fish or a lot of small ones? Can this expansion be broken up into separate little businesses? And then, of course, the one that keeps founders up at night, how much of your baby are you really willing to part with? So once you've wrestled with those big questions and you have a clear strategy, it is time to build the actual foundation for this new venture, the legal and financial structure of the deal. And trust me, this is not just boring paperwork. This is the engine that's going to make your expansion go. Now, when you boil it all down, you've basically got three core options for how to set things up. You can create a totally new, separate corporation for this project. You could go with a standard partnership, or especially if you have those silent, passive investors, you might use what's called a limited partnership. Each one of these has totally different rules and consequences. Now, listen up, because this is the part you absolutely cannot ignore. The structure you pick isn't just a legal thing, it's a financial thing. It has a direct, massive impact on how much tax you pay. And that in turn changes your cash flow, your return on investment. Basically, it determines how much money ends up in everyone's pocket at the end of the day. Get this right, and you can unlock some serious value. All right, enough theory. Let's get our hands dirty and see how this all works in the real world. We're going to dive into a case study of a company called Roller Ltd. They run a chain of amusement centers, and believe me, they are staring this exact problem right in the face. So first off, let's be clear. Roller Ltd is doing great. They're already pulling in over $500,000 in profit every single year. So this isn't some struggling startup. This is a solid, established business that's ready to level up. And the opportunity they're looking at is huge. They found 3 perfect new locations for their centers. We're not talking about just adding a fresh coat of paint here. This is a major move that could totally transform their business and their profits. But here's the rub. Each new spot is going to cost $500,000 to get up and running. That's $1.5 million total. Now, Roller Ltd is doing well, but they can only scrape together $1 million on their own. They are $500,000 short. Plus, they need really good managers to run these new places. This means they don't have a choice. They have to bring in partners. So they come up with a plan. And honestly, this is the approach most people would take. It's the obvious move. Roller Limited puts in 2/3 of the money, that's their $1 million, so they keep a 67% majority control of the new ventures. They find 3 sharp managers who will put in the other $500,000 combined, and they'll get the remaining 33%. Makes sense, right? Roller keeps control, they get their cash, and they get the managers they need. Seems perfect. Okay, let's run the numbers on this obvious plan. The new locations are projected to make a combined profit of $450,000. But here's the kicker. Because Roller Ltd. Controls these new businesses, they are considered associated corporations in the eyes of the taxman. That means all that new profit gets taxed at Roller's higher corporate rate, which is 27%. Ouch. That tax bill chops off over $121,000, leaving about $328,000 after tax. Roller's two-thirds share of that is $219,000. So they invested $1 million to get back $219,000. That's a 21.9% return. And look, 21.9% is not bad at all. Most people would take that deal and be pretty happy. But the question that separates a good business owner from a great one is asking, is there a better way? Is there something we're missing here? Is there some hidden lever we can pull to get an even better return? And that brings us to scenario number 2, the counterintuitive approach. What if, and this is going to sound crazy, what if the secret to making more money was to actually give up more ownership? It feels completely backwards, I know, but just stick with me and watch how the math works out. So in this new scenario, forget about one big expansion project. Instead, they create 3 totally separate corporations, one for each new location. And here is the radical move. In each of those new companies, Roller Ltd. Only takes a 50% stake. They give the other 50% to the manager running that location. They are intentionally, purposefully giving up majority control. Now, why on earth would they do that? Well, the answer is all about taxes. Because Roller Limited no longer has majority control, they own exactly 50%, not more than 50, these new companies are no longer associated. And that, my friends, is like a magic word in the tax code. It means they qualify for the much, much lower small business tax rate of just 13%. So check out the new math. The tax bill for each location just plummeted. The after-tax profit for each spot jumps way up. Roller's 50% share of all that profit comes out to just under $196,000. But here's the key. They only had to put in 50% of the cash, $750,000. So their return on investment skyrockets to 26.1%. This case study just perfectly shows the surprising, almost unbelievable math that can happen when you are smart about how you structure a deal. The whole idea that giving away more of the company can actually lead to a better result for you, that is such a powerful lesson. Sometimes a smaller piece of a much, much bigger pie is way better than a bigger piece of a smaller one. And here it is, side by side. This is the big aha moment. With majority control, they got a 21.9% return. By giving up control, their return jumped to 26.1%. Now look really close here. Yeah, their total profit in dollars is a little bit lower, about 23 grand. But, and this is the absolute genius of it, they got that higher rate of return while investing $250,000 less of their own money. So let's just recap the final trade-off. What did Roller Ltd. Actually get by giving up more equity? They got a way higher return on their investment. They kept $250,000 in their own pocket that they can now use for something else. And you know what? They created real partners who are now 50-50 owners in the business they run every day. That's powerful. And what did they give up? A slightly smaller check at the end of the year, and the one that's hard for a lot of founders to swallow, majority control. And that really brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. As you think about your own business, as you plan your own growth, what are you really trying to maximize? Is your whole strategy built around getting the highest possible financial return on every single dollar you invest? Or is it built to maximize your feeling of control? Because as Roller Limited found out, sometimes the most profitable answer is not the most obvious one.